The first time I went to Georgia was it was just under 18 months ago. And I remember the First Lady invited us for lunch, the group of people that I was with. And so after a while, I asked the First Lady what she did apart from being a First Lady, and she told me, well, I'm a nurse in a public hospital, which if you know the region a bit, the Caucasus, that's not really what First Ladies do. So I thought, this is a good start. This is a pretty interesting place to be right there. What I've discovered since is that Georgia is an amazing country in so many ways. It's a rather small country, but still has 14 different climates. It goes up to 16,000 feet, but you can be skiing in the afternoon after having bathed in the Black Sea in the morning. It's a place where you have some of the oldest Christian tradition, but also a mix of all others. There's a village in Georgia where people, because of this mix of influences, Christians go to Mass on Fridays and don't eat pork. It's a place where you have one of the most ancient alphabets in the world, one of the most beautiful alphabets in the world. I really encourage you to go check it out. Georgian is not at all, has nothing to do with Cyrillic, and it's just absolutely beautiful. So you have a lot of history and traditions in Georgia, dating back to 3,000 years and plus BC. But you also have, and Mr. President, I'm really pleased, Misha, to have you here. You also have some of the most modern, innovative governments in the world, certainly, but in general, it's a country that's focused as much on the future as it is carried by a very, very ancient past. There's a phenomenon that happens in all of the countries that go through these revolutions, is that the enthusiasm and the hopes that these movements, these popular movements create, lead often to a hangover effect the next day. So my first question, and I'll keep it very broad, but is to say it takes very different skills to tear down an autocratic regime than the skills that you need to build a country up. So how did that manifest itself in Georgia, in your case, Misha?
I was basically just newly turned 35 when I got elected to presidency in Georgia. We had government ministers, we had team that were in their 20s, in their early 30s, and it was called a country, but it didn't really look like one, because in the last 10, 11 years before the Rose Revolution, and they wouldn't have had electricity or heating or anything like that, not talking about any modern tools to access education. A couple of years ago, together with my assistant at that time, I was looking at images from 2003, and we both looked at each other, and I said, what do they have only black and white images on television? Like instinctively, because everything looked green, dark. And so actually so we came in, we inherited this mass, and one thing that from the first moment, day one, we knew that we have no time. You had to start somewhere. We are right now, we used to be one of the most corrupt countries in the world. We are #1 fighter with corruption according to Transparency International. That's to say, no country on Transparency server list has made as much progress in the same amount of time as Georgia did in 5 years period. Georgia, by all the studies of the European Union done since the last 3 years, in terms of crime rate, is the safest country in Europe. If you looked at business environment, we were 147th in terms of doing business environment. We moved all the way down to being 12th, but easiest place in Eastern and Central Europe to do business. I should think we should have been doing better on that list, but they have been moving goalposts all the time, because I have claimed that we should be at least between top 5. We went through difficult times because we had multiple destabilization efforts. We had in 2008, after several years of mounting provocations and all kind of nasty things, and energy embargo and full-blown economic embargo. We just lost in 1 week 60% of our export markets. We had full-blown invasion from Russia. Russians still occupy 20% of our territory. We have expelled 500,000 people from there, which is basically 1/10 of our population. Despite the fact we've been growing before that war with double-digit annual numbers, nobody has time to lose. There was always, it's like a, it's like a wave coming with the tide. It always will go back for a while. Our experience shows that even from hopeless situations, you can come back, you can raise.
Misha, you just went through a lot. I think I'd like to sort of pause on several of the reforms that are most characteristic and that actually brought most change to the country. Starting with the reform of the police, that when all these police officers were sacked, the number of accidents actually went down. So, please, Misha, tell us, what were the results of this? How did it happen? How long did you take to do it?
I think we were a country that had all the security challenges, and we got rid of those people. For 3 months, we needed 3 months to recruit young people. We put the publicity on TV, on in media. We set up police academy ad hoc, where we brought also some foreign trainers to train them, and we brought new young people. But for 3 months, Georgia had no police force. It was holiday season. It's still, it's a touristic country. Traffic accidents went down, crime rate went down. People started to feel a little bit safer. So the amazing thing was that, we understood that police was the main part of criminal issue. You have one window principle. There is a philosophy behind those reforms. There are a huge number of all new government offices in Georgia. I have a claim that we have best government offices in the world. They are all made of glass. They are all transparent. House of Justice is a place where you get all these documents. Say driver's license is maximum 5 minutes. Passport is maximum 6 minutes.
I missed a plane from Baku in Azerbaijan to Tbilisi and had to take a car. And basically, after long hours on the road, going across Azerbaijan, we got to the border. On the Azerbaijani side, I spent about 2 hours trying to speak with a guy who looked like Jabba the Hutt. And after that, 2 hours of that, they had lost my driver. I didn't know where the car was. When I got the car back, my luggage wasn't in it. It's just the whole process was absolutely amazing. And then after 2 hours of this ridiculous nonsense, I got indeed to I guess this recruiting of models has been expanded to all of the borders.
So she couldn't get rid of you for 2 hours after that?
No, actually, on the other side, I got to a customs agent who looked more like Jennifer Aniston, and it took basically probably 3 minutes.
But good news is, since you were there, when you were there last time?
At that border?
Yeah.
That was a year ago.
Yeah, since a few months ago, you would no longer see any customs officers, because right now we have this equipment, which I was seeing somewhere, if it's on CNN or somewhere, I don't remember, recall exactly. I say, in the future, people will have to go, with the chips, no problem. They will not have to. In Georgia, there is already this future, because in Georgia now, you go through customs gates with your passport in your pocket, like on the ski thing here, because you don't have to take out anything. You just don't have to encounter anything. You just go through it, because it's all automatically registers through electronic chips, because that's how the technology works.
Actually, I do think, I recall that now the police was obviously not trusted at all by the population.
No, we had 5% trust for the police. It's 86% trust for the police now.
Of course, reforming the police in a police state is fundamental if you want to change anything. But what exactly, you mentioned a few of the reforms that allowed you to leapfrog this way. What are other ones? What are the fundamental ones?
Well, as I said, tax, police, the customs, overall bureaucracy, education, because we had the worst corruption was not in the police even, it was in the education system, access to the institutions. And what happened is that, in order to get to any public university, you had to pay bribe. In order to move from one year to another, you had to pay bribe. What really happened is we, first of all, did universal public exams, and so the social composition of people who were passing it radically changed. We sent thousands of people funded from government money, the best performers, to go and study abroad. We encouraged it a lot to do that. We are doing 1 laptop per child program, which basically means that not only every school is computerized and internetized, but basically everybody has, almost every kid gets computer now, and I think eventually everybody will get them. So that is a very important reform. So overall, if you ask what is the biggest change in Georgia, I think it's a mental revolution.
I wanted to ask you about the beginning, the courage with which you faced the problems in your country. I still remember the moment in the legislature when you walked in and started yelling and telling the former president what you thought of him, and that was an incredibly courageous moment that I don't think anyone will forget. And we talked last night about how your revolution, your movement has inspired many other revolutions now. I just came back from Libya, as I told you, and you're an incredibly inspiring figure. And I would really love to hear how you overcame your own fears and how your fellow people helped you face those fears and achieve your freedom.
Well, thank you. And I think the biggest thing is that, when you face existential threats, like for instance now we have with our neighbor, it's not the time to scream, oh, we are under threat, we are besieged, and leave us alone, we shouldn't move. On the contrary, that's the way to act, that's the way to move. And that's exactly when you feel losing your country, future for anything you stood for, there is no way back. But I think the real revolution starts not when you come into parliament and shout, even when there was threat that at any moment they would shoot or kill all of us because there were lots of weapons around. But I think the main revolution starts when CNN cameras do leave. And that's something that, is the hardest thing to understand, that it cannot really be felt. And beginning when we started to do, and we had all these young people, they were inexperienced, they were really idealistic, they were well educated, they were brave to the level of arrogance, to the extent of arrogance. And then there was I remember some foreign journalists comparing the whole crowd to Ocean 11, because they came in and you don't know from which to start, from which place, but they had to do fast things, and they had to move and coordinate, but improvise, take risks. Without taking risks, there is no thing. The other thing is that you should never chase popularity, because popularity is a nice thing. It's a nice thing for feeling of yourself, but it's also a nice thing because that enables you, empowers you to do things. But that's exactly the trick. If you are seeking popularity for the sake of popularity, then you're lost.
I heard a lot of change in the police, in a lot of sectors, but what amazes me the most, and the question is the rule of law, the judicial system. What were the changes you needed to make in order to be able to sustain the changes? So it's very important.
Well, I think the biggest change that happened recently, we introduced jury trials. I mean, first of all, level of trust in judiciary. It was like close to zero. Now it's 60-something%. Still less than police, but it's still like high percentage. The judiciary is always harder, because there is always a temptation to either to get corrupt or to get politicized. It's easy to change policemen. You train new people, then they know judiciary needs tradition. Judiciary needs time. But I think what really happened, that also basically almost 100% of the judges were changed. These are mostly young people. They have now all juridical guarantees for their independence. They have high salaries, and eventually they will form tradition.
Not very many countries, much less governments, survive a Russian invasion. Can you talk a little bit about how that affected you and how that affected the country and how you see your sovereignty going forward?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is a big thing when you have when you are building your democracy and your success story at a gunpoint, that's exactly what's happening, because whatever Russians weapons they have, they are in our territory, they're all pointed at my office or at our capital. Vladimir Putin publicly swore that he would hang by some certain most vulnerable parts of my body. It's not nice when you have this kind of presence. It's not nice when people were expelled from these houses and hundreds of thousands and cannot go back just because somebody in Moscow discovered that they are not, these are no longer their houses and the place is empty. But there is this trick. Russian demonstrators in the streets of Moscow right now more and more scream publicly that they want Georgia in Russia. They want Georgian reforms.
You and your team were able to bring like a big change in your country in a few years, and there are a lot of people here in this room that also want to bring significant change in their country. So what are the lessons that you have learned in bringing these successful changes in Georgia that you could give to entrepreneurs?
Speak all the time, like obsessively about the place, and then entrepreneurs would follow. And that's what the role of the government. It's not just to stay away, but to lead sometimes, but not by, dragging them with their, no, it's not, you shouldn't touch them. But lead and then they will follow. People on their free will do miracles, but without government meddling. That's my experience. And the way how we are building all these skyscrapers now, it's worth, looking at them. And then, we don't have, these kind of things are only built by oil and gas rich countries. I think the only thing, I would make a very bad businessman myself. I think I have zero talent for that. However, there is one thing that unites both spheres. If you are brave and taking risks and daring and things, it will always give you the success. Or most of the time will give you the success. And otherwise, if you don't take it, if life is boring, what's the use of staying like that anyway? So thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thanks.